But the 18th. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Avini Vibes. We're grateful that you're here. Gratitude is an important part of this evening. We meet every Thursday night, and we do call it Avini Vibes because it's all about good vibes. It's all about positive, those positive affirmations, but a collective group of people. I was fortunate to get on earlier tonight, speaking with Carol and Chip and talking about that very much about community, and that's what this is about like-minded people that want wellness, want well-being, purpose, but more importantly, health for themselves, but health for people that they love and care for. So that's what Avini Vibes is all about. So if you're a guest, welcome. Glad you're here. I have to just tell you, I had an awesome experience this morning with my friend who's on as a guest tonight. And she did sound bowls with us today. So it was wonderful. So another Warwickian from New York. It was really cool to help in our healing, using a lot of the different modalities. But I have to be grateful for her, and I have to be grateful for the leadership in Avini Health, a company that is all about helping people, as I said, get well and better life. As Chip says, how did you say that, Chip, one time? Water is wetter and better. Yeah, make water wetter and our bodies are better. So that's what we're doing here tonight. So anyway, grateful, Carol. Thank you for always being here with us also to help with the technology part of it. Carol's got an awesome story herself, a testimonial, and feel free, you can always jump in and share a testimonial, any of you tonight. So thank you for being with us at Avini Vibes tonight. And again, just feel free to ask a question. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Chip. I asked Chip to address something tonight because I came across 4 or 5 people this week alone that have been dealing with something that is causing them, I'll call it clogging. It's clogging them in an organ in their bodies that is giving them a little trouble. So I had gone ahead and looked up, I remember always seeing these graphics about the function of different organs in our body and how important it is to unclog, I'll use a simple term, of any of the organs, but particularly the organ that has such a major function. I try to thank my liver every day because of all the work that it has to do. And I'm grateful to use my cell defender along with other products to clean the toxins out of that important organ that I have in my body. So Chip, if you don't mind, would you just share a little bit with us about that, one of the important organs in our body that we have, and we should be mindful of taking good care of that because it does take care of us.
When you asked me to do that earlier in the day, Christine, I've been kind of probing my mind for where to go. And oftentimes when I'm working with someone, I'll speak about the particular functions in that part of their body, how it's supposed to work, what can go wrong, and then why Avini is so important. And I actually thought that tonight we might take a little trip. And if you take this trip with me, you'll never be the same, I promise you. Carol was talking to me a moment ago, and she's asked me to make a presentation to a different group about community. And my inspiration when she said that was one of the communities I'm a part of is a parachutist. And there's a reason that the military has so many people parachute. It changes your opinion of yourself in a matter of seconds. And the whole rest of your life, you think, I must be able to do anything. Well, that's a very interesting thought to put into the minds of anybody, right? One of the women that's my age in the group recently sent me a picture of her parachuting. A bunch of people have sent me pictures that are my age. I'm talking 1940, 50, 60 model humans have sent me pictures of themselves water skiing or doing something that they thought they'd quit doing. Last night or earlier on a call, a guy that I was talking to said he just upped and ran 50 feet. He said, I haven't run a step in decades. He said, I just all of a sudden felt like I could run and I ran 50 feet. Well, that may not sound like a big deal, But if you start getting crazy ideas in your head like that, you know what that is? That's attributes of a younger you coming to the surface. Well, why do we come to something like this? What do we demand that we get from participating in something like this? To me, it's attributes of a younger us. What's the thing that's the common denominator between all of us that are on the call here right now? We're all fascinated with living things and what makes us more alive. Now I'm fascinated with bowls and sound, and I think it probably has something to do with horses. I was on with some people earlier in the day, and our entire doorway to get into that group of people, which has now led to a lot of humans, was a whole bunch of mayors that wouldn't get pregnant.
Wow.
Humans are having trouble, and so are horses. The fertility rate in horses is dropping off. And so the dream deal over there is to have a bunch of pregnant horses, and it isn't quite time that we can know that yet. But what do I think is going to happen? Well, I think that all of a sudden those horses are going to be more alive. Some of the old research in agriculture, and we're talking about digestive things today, there's worries. When you start using something like zeolite, well, in the raw form, it's full of poison. And that's how they had it. They just powdered it up in the raw form, mixed it in with the feed, and it's a desiccant. It'll absorb moisture within itself, makes the feed go through equipment easier, right? I mean, that's kind of one of the objects, and it reduces the likelihood of mold growing in it in the feed. So that's interesting. But there was worries. Well, what if it drops off some of the poisons it's carrying? That would hurt the animals. Well, what if it steals some of the beneficial metals from them? That would hurt the animals. What was found way back in those days in agriculture, way before we got to Rick Deitch and what we're doing here, which makes it appropriate for what we do with it in humans, it was used in agriculture. And what they found when they did the research, that's where I come from. I come from, animal science in a university setting. What they found was that the animals had improved nutritional performance, that they actually got more from their food, and their performance as far as putting on weight improved, and their reproductive efficiency improved. And that was with the stuff that was just the raw material. Remember, the raw material for our lead product, which is Avini Cell Defender, is naturally occurring. It's a crystal that grows when a volcano erupts in seawater, and it's a replicating molecular structure. Happens to be open on the inside and has strong negative corners within an open cage. That's very unusual in the mineral world, to be like a rock sponge. Think of it as a rock sponge. And in nature, it's already full of poison. Well, what our biochemist Rick Deitch does, he makes water run uphill. He makes it give up the poisons that it's holding, and it would hold him forever unless he got it out of there. And then we take it in, and it refills itself with those poisons. You hear about the product having amazing effects where it picks up a poison, it carries it into a bad cell. Isn't it cool that it's using poisons to kill that were in you before you ever took it, right? Incredible. When I was looking at this in the very beginning, one of the first things I ever saw, and one of the first things Rick ever saw, was studies done in Croatia on dogs, where they put it intravenously into the dogs in the raw form. Those dogs were selected because they had growths on their bodies. They began to improve pretty much every one of them. Well, a couple of guys from Croatia approached Rick when he was at Rexall Sundown as their lead product formulator, and they're selling billions of dollars worth of natural products into the communities. And they said, hey, we've got this cool zeolite product, and they handed him that research and said, here's what we got. And they said, would you, market our product? And then they came back to him, and he said, well, I love your idea, but your product is no place ready to go to market. So you have absolutely no control of the size of the particles, and it looks to me like all the poisons are left in it. If we would control the particle size, make it small enough to leave the gut and circulate systemically in the body fluids, so it didn't have to be put in IV, and we cleaned it so that it would go pick up the poisons in our system, then it becomes a detox agent as well as being effective against some of the most horrible things that can go wrong in people. That would be a product. And they just kind of looked at their shoes and shook their head. They just wanted him to take their plain old dead product and you know, bring it into his multi-billion-dollar marketplace. They didn't want to hear his ideas about how to make it properly. Same things going on in the world today. People want to put the word zeolite on a bottle and act like it's the same thing. Well, yeah, if you want to put it intravenously into your veins, but Rick was thinking, well, you know, introducing it with an IV into your vein. I've already got stuff like that. He was trained at Duke Cancer Research Institute making chemo drugs, right? I mean, that's where he came from. And his job was to figure out how to make them not hurt you as much. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's just a quick intro to our core competency, our lead product, and that's in is detoxylite made from a specific zeolite. That specific zeolite is called clinoptilolite. I know I'm speaking Greek to some people. I don't mean to do that, but I remember that word by clinic operation tilolite. I just used that way back when, and I can still remember it that way, clinoptilolite, spelled just like it sounds. But then we clean it and make it small, and in that form, we've actually trademarked that name. Rick began calling that micronized and activated. Well, everybody started picking up that language as though theirs was micronized and activated. So he actually trademarked the concept and the word detoxylite, and so no one can steal that. I've seen people put my wife's testimony and things I've written, things Rick have written on their product and act like it's the same thing. It's, trust me, it's not. Yeah, you know, when it comes out of the mine, it's dug out with the payloader, dumped in a dump truck, and bagged up in big 50-pound bags. In that form, it's worth about $800 a ton. Well, if you can powder that up and put it in a little bottle and write the word zeolite on it and act like it's what we've got, you can make some money if you're a good marketer, but you're going to have some people disappointed if they expect to get the benefits that you see here. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? Okay, so those are some really, really important distinctions for me, and I want you guys to know that kind of thing. I would like to take a little diversion because I've got this plan made. I talked about diving out of planes. Well, I'm asking you guys to take a dive down through the digestive system with me. We will spend a little extra time as we go by the liver because Christine asked. But before I do that, I know queued up, sitting ready to speak is my dear buddy Ed Kwaski, and he has a testimony for this evening. I'd like to hear it before I go on. Can we do that, Ed?
You're muted, Ed. There you go.
Yeah, I got it. If I look up, it's not because I'm not trying to look you guys in the eyes, but I'm looking at a black screen here, and I see everybody up here. So I'll be kind of doing that sometimes, so I can just see you guys. As Chip knows, I was always an athlete, and I essentially get this right. In a course of about 3 or 4 months back in 2021, I guess it'd be June, July, August, September. I just started gaining weight, and I couldn't pass anything. And I couldn't figure it out because my mother was homeopathic, and I was just like, and my mom was gone at the time, but and she was a genius when it comes to this stuff. And so my sister saw me in October, and she said, "I'm taking you to the emergency." I said, "No, you're not. You know how guys can be. I'm not going to the doctor. I'm going to figure it out." and finally she made me. And so my normal weight is about 185. That's where I'm comfortable. And so we get to Mayo, and I'm there, and I weighed 268, which was massive for me. Couldn't tie my shoes. Took me, if I had to go to an appointment, it was embarrassing. It took me 15 minutes just to put my shoes and tie them on. So I get there, and they give me The nurses literally took 10 minutes. They walked in and they said, and I was a mess. I mean, I was. They said, yep, he's got cirrhosis. And I said, what? And my sister was sitting next to me, and I said, are you giving me a death sentence? And she said, well, you can always get a liver transplant. And I was just sitting there like an hour earlier, I was at home thinking I can figure this thing out. And so it really kind of ticked me off where they kept me overnight, and they did a lot of tests and everything. And so I was devastated. You can imagine. I mean, I figure I can get this stuff out of my body. So when they said that, I went into kind of like competitive mode, and I said, okay. And they wanted me to go through this course to prepare for a liver and 2-year wait probably. And I said, I'm not even entertaining that, because I knew that if my body could get clean, then my body can take care of itself. It can heal itself. So I literally went downstairs at Mayo. They drained 24 pounds of fluid out of my stomach in 30 minutes. I was laying there with my hands on my stomach as I'm seeing the fluid come out. And there's a ding every time a liter was coming out. And it was ended up being like, let's see, it would have been 12 liters that came out. And so we go back upstairs, and I stayed that night, and I knew I was never going to go back. I was never going to go back. So I called Suzanne Marone, who's in Avini. She wasn't in Avini then. I wasn't in Avini then. And I said, can we reverse this? She said, absolutely. And it was all about cleaning the body, right? And so I got out, and literally after the 24 pounds came off, my eyes were yellow. I mean, had just blown up. And 45 days later, I was with this homeopathic doctor, and he gave me some good supplements and things like that, and detox type stuff. And I worked some things on my own. I told the doctor 38 days before I went and saw him. He looked at me, and at the time I was like 221. And he said, well, I'll see you in 40 days, whatever it was. And I said, okay, well, when you see me again, I'm going to come back at my playing weight in college, which is 185 to 190. He said, okay. And by the way, my metabolic age was 85 years old. This is when I was 55. So it was 85 inside, 55 on the outside. So I said, so I'll see you whenever it was. November 30th, actually, right after Thanksgiving, which is really tough. But so I went back, and we went through, and the nurses were blown away. They were like, oh my God, they didn't even recognize me at first, because my skin was tight, my eyes were clear, and my body would look, well, it was my playing weight. Because before I left, I forgot. And I said, well, hey, can we weigh me? And I didn't know, I knew I'd lost weight, a lot of weight. And we went in there, and the scale showed 189.9. And I was like, I did it. And the great thing about that is Kyle calls me like January, matter of fact, almost a year ago to this day, and told me about Avini. And that was what I knew from Mom. I found so many books from my mother, or documents that she had pulled up. Plenipilolite, zeolite, clean the body. The fish tank has to be clean for the fish to live. She made t-shirts out of it. So it came back to me. But when Kyle and I sat down right down at the beach, and he told me what he was doing, it took him 5 minutes. I said, Kyle, that's what I need, because none of the things that the doctor was giving me was taking care of heavy metals. And if it was, it didn't do anything, because I still had heavy metals when he tested me the last time. So the bottom line for me was, when Kyle talked to me about Avini, I said, okay, now I've got a security blanket. Now I know that my whole body is going to be covered with our products, and I've got an army inside of it. And so I didn't know that it was going to turn around that quick. I guess it was just a lot of excess stuff that I failed to get out of my body. And I look at my body like a stagnant pond. And when I walked back in there on November 30th, it was like a nicely running stream. And I felt incredible, like best I felt in years. And that was because the liver is the filter, right? And it's critical. So yeah, that was that was what happened with me, and I've never looked back since, and I've never gone back since. So thanks to Avini, thank God for Rick and Neil and Doug and Chip, I mean Kyle and Christine and Carol, all you guys. I mean, it's so comforting knowing that you got some wingmen in your body that are fighting for you.
Amen. Thank you, Ed.
You're
Wow.
welcome.
Powerful. Very, very powerful.
Hmm.
All right, Chip, I
Yeah,
think we're
so
ready to go on the dive.
Whew.
say again, Christine.
I said, we're ready to go on the dive. That's
Oh,
amazing. Story.
you know, I'm ready to go on the dive, but I got to take a minute with Ed. I've heard Ed talk a few times,
Mhm.
and he always kind of understated it and talked about the athlete thing. And I mean, you guys have heard him talk before. For me, what he just said was
Mm.
by far the most he's let us in to know him,
Mhm.
and that's really what it's about. I mean, I could say that it was his most powerful presentation, but what he did was he let us get a little closer to him
Mhm.
than I've ever seen him let us get before. I mean, some of those moments, those would be awful hard to talk about when you're facing them. It's easier to talk about when you're on the other side of it.
Mhm.
And certainly it's a powerful story with which to talk to others. But I'm just going to maybe notice a couple of the things that he said that really caught my attention. And they're really the moments, that little statement he said, when they measured me.
You're muted. Oh,
Uh-oh, we lost Chip.
we lost him.
All right.
Oh,
well,
no. He just went dark on his. He's on here.
He hit the wrong button, but he'll be back.
There you go.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I needed to ask her to give Mars a call. So anyway, um, yeah, when he said that moment that they weighed him, and the thing that went in through his mind was, I did it.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
That's a gigantic statement. That's a life altering moment right there. That's the stepping out of the airplane moment, right? I did it. I outsmarted this thing. And oftentimes what we set out to do, maybe we're on a three-way call with someone, or the goal is we're going to put our heads together and we're going to make a team and we're going to outsmart this thing. He made a team with his mom, actually with his mom's memory.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Made a team with his mom's memory to hatch a plan to fix this thing. Well,
Mhm.
that's a pretty powerful statement, right?
Yeah.
The respect for
Yeah.
her. And there was two other things he said that really got me. And one of them was, now I've got an army inside of me,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And I have the comfort of wingmen every place I turn. And so that's pretty cool stuff. And
Yeah.
and you know, I'm going to let you guys know a little bit more about this particular group. Is special to me. I love the group. For one thing, I've always wanted to have a chance to work in New York, or with New York people, because I've never seen in around me a group of people from New York that were interested in their health and wanting to build a networking company. And so it's something I've been watching for and waiting for and hoping for. And it just happens to pop up here. And it's through Kyle. And Kyle is really, really special to me. I would say, yes, he's much younger than I am, but I listen to Kyle speak every morning for a couple of years. I mean, every morning I got up early to listen to Kyle speak. And so I would count him among my mentors. I really feel like he's that big of a and that moment when his daughter comes tottering over to him, and she wasn't walking when he left to go on the band trip, and he came home and she's already walking, her first steps have already happened. That just resonates in such a big way. And then I don't know if anybody happened to listen to Thane and I this morning, but there was a story of a couple, and she was really sent home to die, expected to live another 2 or 3 days. But she was the breadwinner for the family. The dad was disabled, on disability, several kids, single wide home, broke as broke could be. And they came by for the Christmas party at Thane's house, and Thane said, well, tell me something about what this last few months have been. And the guy said, I feel like I'm living in a fairy tale. Well, what he was calling a fairy tale, most of us would think would be destitute, abject poverty and everything gone wrong. And his wife's just coming out of the, hospital where she was going to die, but she was with him, and she was coming back, and she was able to get back to work. And I thought about that, and I thought, there's a moment that's equivalent to Kyle and the baby toddling over to, because all the guy wanted was to have his family in one piece and to have health. Somebody posted something the other day that just really got me. I thought, how brilliantly said. It said, a healthy person has many dreams. An unhealthy person has but one.
Mm.
Yep.
Boy, that boils it down in a hurry, right?
Yeah.
And for her to get it back was like living in a fairy tale. And you've heard Kyle talk about it. He said, when I first took off with network marketing, I wasn't making money right away. It's like trying to start a V8 engine with a pull rope. When you try to get one of these companies going, right? And you get your little group going, it's first you and one other person. Boom, boom. Now you got one more cylinder popping, and then you get another pop, 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 and you got 3 going. And then, the joy of having somebody to work with, comes into play there. And that stuff's all so wonderful. And he said, I'm basically at home broke. I'm selling the car to pay the bills, but I'm happy because I've managed to make it home. And so that kind of stuff is gigantic, and the effort he put in to become him and who he is, and that we all have access to that guy at this point. And that group is super. This group is especially, and I can't say that any of them, they all are. I used to tell my kids, never say that somebody's your best friend, because you just gave everybody else a demotion. But this certainly is one of my very favorite groups. So I'm very comfortable saying that. And so, okay, we're going to take a trip. We're going to take a trip here. We swallow something. Oh boy, the power of the fork. Probably one of the most important filters in our lives is the one between our hand and our mouth. What you choose to put in your mouth is probably one of the most important filters that you'll ever have working for you.
Wow.
And so when we do swallow something, we put it in our mouth. Then if we use the Avini Cell Defender and we put that in our mouth, what's that going to do? I like to leave it in there a little bit, put the drops in, let them be in there. What's it going to do? I've discovered that it takes the stains off your teeth, and it makes it very unlikely that plaque will form on your teeth, and very unlikely that you'll have gum disease. And everything digestively is starting there, the very first breakdown of everything. So, and when you swallow it, it just goes to work on down the pipe. So you can get additional benefits from Cell Defender just by letting it linger in your mouth a little bit. Same way with the silver, you can let it linger in your mouth for a while and clean up your microbiome from top to bottom, right? And so those are just some of the things that you can do. So that begins, and now you swallow something, and it goes down the esophagus, and it gets to that first little pinch point right there, right? This is, I'll do parts of this, during a 3-way call, just kind of, let's go play around in that area where the trouble is, think about what happens there, and then let's talk about what the trouble is and how to fix it. But at that little pinch point right at the top of the stomach, there's a muscle there, just like closing your hand, right? And if you've ever heard of a hiatal hernia, that's like taking a pair of socks and cuffing it over. The stomach comes up through that valve, and then the valve grabs it. That's what a hiatal hernia is. And so sometimes they can snap it back, but it wants to pop back up through there. So, and inside the stomach, what's going on? Well, we can't actually hold acid strong enough to digest our food for very darn long. There is not a container of that strength in our body. But for a little while the food is in there, our stomach coats itself in mucus, and from our blood comes the hydrochloric acid to digest the food. Okay? We do not get as acid as a carnivore does. Have you ever wondered why your dog can eat bones and rancid meat and be just fine? Have you ever wondered about that? Well, he's got super duper acid in there strong enough to dissolve bones. And this is just little weird things that I think about and wonder about. You guys, maybe you've never heard this, probably not, because it's just in my head. Why is your dog age 7 times faster than you? Is it because he deals with a much more acidic stomach every time he eats? You know, that's quite a challenge to straighten that all out. Well, how does that acid that's just dissolved that food get dealt with? How come it doesn't just go ahead and burn holes in you? And here we arrive at the liver. Okay, the liver is making bile. Bile is very base. You can burn something with an acid or you can burn something with a base, but if you put the two together, you come back to a neutral pH that does not burn. Okay, so that's one of the functions of the liver. These are reasons it's important. Why, when someone gets, you know, the big term now is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Well, if it's non-alcoholic, what is it that's causing the fatty liver? Well, I just have to raise my hand and say I'm guilty, because I live in a town with a gigantic sugar factory. We make pure white, drug quality crystalline sugar. Two biggest employers in my town are the sugar factory and the hospital. Which is more powerful? Sugar factory, it can fill lots of hospitals with patients. And I hate to say it, but I'm probably one of the world's foremost authorities on growing sugar. I used to be the University of Nebraska farm manager, and I hauled thousands of loads of sugar beets to that plant and know a lot about how to make them grow. Strange thing is, and I began to realize it, that the leaves are actually good for you. The roots probably aren't too bad, but we throw away all the fiber out of the root and we throw away the leaves, return that to the soil. The only part we feed to the humans is the pure white drug quality crystalline sugar. And it's what knocks out the liver, just like if it was alcoholic sugar disease, liver disease. Okay. The term is non-alcoholic liver disease. So if you're looking to do something as far as that filter between the fork and the mouth, those super simple white carbs, got to take a big bye-bye. So now, here coming out of the liver is not just bile, which is real base, also it's making all kinds of cool stuff. It's filtering and it's breaking things down. You know, you think about some of the most important antioxidants are made in the liver. When people's eyes start to go bad, oftentimes it's because their liver isn't making enough glutathione. Glutathione is a antioxidant made in the liver and extremely important throughout the body, but especially the eyes. Glutathione is sort of like a super antioxidant that doesn't wear out as fast as the other ones do. And so that's another reason to have a great, highly functional liver. So now there's little tubes coming out of the liver and they head over to the gallbladder, right? The gallbladder is the container where the gall is held, the bile is held, and the bile is that highly base, and we are able to contain bile within an organ. And so that's what the gallbladder is doing. If your gallbladder's been removed, then it just goes directly from the liver over to the small intestine. And along there, what else is going along as it goes across in that tube? You know, it's bringing things over to aid in digestion, right? And so it's all going to get dumped into the duodenum right as the food leaves the stomach. Cool? So you got this bolus of food leaving the stomach, it's acid, the stomach has done what it can do, and now it comes out and it would burn you bad. If it goes up through that hiatal hernia, it burns you bad, right? That's what it is. That's the acid burning you. Or if it goes down and it doesn't get neutralized by the bile, it's going to burn there. But the bile saves you. It's secreted through a little valve, I think, called the papillon valve. That means butterfly, like a little butterfly valve, if you can imagine that. And it's dumped into the top there, into the food. Included there is also the products of the pancreas, which is primarily insulin. So the hormone that gets together with sugar and makes it accepted, carries it and accepted into a cell. That's what insulin does, made by the pancreas, okay? We want all those things to be working properly. Interesting detail here with Plus Relief, our product for discomfort made from the cobra venom. It's able to deal with deep visceral pain, deep visceral misery and agony. And the ways that, the things that can create that are problems with the pancreas, childbirth, deep broken bones, those kind of things, gunshot wounds. These are the kind of things that Plus Relief can deal with, and very few of the prescription drugs can go that deep, and none of them can go in there and solve that problem without hurting you. And our product is actually beneficial in additional ways. It does not harm you when it's making you feel better. So now we go on down. Now we're in the duodenum. So we are omnivorous, right? So we can do both meat and plants, and the meat parts happening in the small intestine. And so what's going on there, and this is fascinating. I spent some time learning this better this week and how to talk about it better. You're going to run into people when you're doing this kind of work that have all kinds of weird autoimmune problems, right? And they run into each other. It doesn't seem like any exact one is the same. One of them makes you look like you've got a wolf pattern on your face. That one's called lupus. Lupus being the word for wolf. And it takes out your organs. There's, the 12-letter F word. There's, you name it. But typically they're all multi-symptom problems. And if you got one, it kind of looks like you got the other, and it's real hard to name it, and they don't know what to do about it. Well, let's take a look at foundationally. Let's say you're a person and you're wanting to help somebody in that situation, and you've got Avini in your hands. Is there a chance that you can be helpful? Well, yeah. Well, why? You could call us the gut company. We just took a little trip down, through the stomach, and now we're in the small intestine. What's going on in the small intestine? Things are being broken down into nutrients, right? And then it leaves the intestines and goes into the bloodstream to get used. Well, there's a single layer of cells that are coating what villi and microvilli, that's the little hair-like structures that are lining our guts that reach out and absorb things. And between those single layer of cells are what's called the close junctions. And that's where the decision is being made. Is this ready to leave this digestive system and go out into the bloodstream yet? That's where that decision is being made, called the close junctions. If you have a leaky gut, how many people have heard that? Well, what's leaking? It's those junctions. Those junctions are letting stuff out before they're ready. Well, what's immediately, and this is the new languaging I picked up. I was listening to a guy, and when he said this, I thought this was so awesome. And he said, guess what? Inside of your intestine isn't really inside of your body yet. We are a tube, and we are completely lined with skin inside and out. Even if you swallow something, it's in the tube, but it's not inside of your tissues yet.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
Between that tube and what's waiting just on the other side of that single coating of cells that's absorbing things in the lining of your gut, 70% of your immune system is sitting right outside of there, on the outside of the intestine, ready to do war with anything that gets in that shouldn't.
Wow.
What if your food gets out when it's still 2 or 3 little chunks of something and it isn't really a nutrient yet, and your immune system looks at it and says, don't know what that is, I guess I have to fight with it, I don't recognize that as a nutrient. It should have gone down another few more inches and been totally broken down. All of a sudden, there you go. So when we begin to have people's intestines get better, their blood sugars, their blood lipids, and certainly with Avini Plus Fiber, all those numbers, it's guaranteed. I mean, it's like it's not maybe going to happen. You start using Avini Plus Fiber, a scoop, before your 2 biggest meals of the day. And the next time you go in for blood work, you're going to be showing off. You're not going to be afraid about what the doc finds. You're going to be showing off. He's going to look at your blood work, and he's going to, just like the nurses when Ed walked in. They said, "Who are you? Whose numbers am I looking at here?" And that always happens. Actually, the next morning, blood sugars come down. I was talking to a guy, not too long ago, like right before this call. Oh, it was a tender story. I'm going to tell a story about a different guy. My grandfather was born in 1898. Great guy, man's man, all the guy stuff, drinking, smoking, carousing, made fur coats from skins. That was his job, his business. And he rented his space for his first shop from a guy named Verge Eagle. Verge had lost an arm in a railroad accident, big railroad town where I grew up, and owned this building. And he ran the restaurant, the hotel, and rented the space to my grandfather for the first shop. And my grandfather's favorite story about Verge Eagle, some people came traveling through and rented a room in the hotel, and the lady at the desk rented to him, and they said, "Can't you get somebody to please carry in my husband's luggage? He's lost an arm. He can't do it." And Verge overheard and went out, picked up one suitcase, tossed it up in the air, caught it with his stump, picked up the other one, and says, "What room would you like me to take it to?" That mentality is what I want you guys to go forward with. I bet you everybody here has been hurt somehow. And I want you to just get the power from it, not the hurt from it. Okay?
Well said.
All right. So on down through the digestive tract, that's the main thing I wanted to say. Now we get into the large intestine. That's the plant part of it. That's where the microbiome kicks in. That's our bacteria breaking down. So now you go prebiotic, which is the beneficial fibers, probiotic, which is the beneficial bacteria, and postbiotic, which is what they make working together. One of the most important things that they make working together is short chain fatty acids. And I'm going to highlight butyric acid because butyric acid happens to be the food for that single cell lining of the gut that we've been wanting to do good. So why do we have Avini Plus Fiber? Why does it do all these miracles throughout the digestive system? It's because of that mix. What's one of the most multiplying things that you can get right in your life? Getting your microbiome straight, because they go to work making new ones. You want to hear a really cool little story, and maybe nobody else in the world, not very many people probably know this one. I get kicked out of knowing this stuff, and I run into it. Lady in France, working with immunotherapy on people that were growing tumors, and it worked for some and not for others. She thought, well, why is that? And so she was a researcher, and she started looking into it. And she started thinking it might have something to do with the microbiome. And she found a specific bacteria that the people who benefited had, and the ones who did not benefit from the medical immunotherapy did not have. And it was such a fragile bacteria that they couldn't make it into a probiotic. But her little hint at the end was, and you can go upstairs and look in the fridge right now, what she said, pomegranate. Said it loves to grow in pomegranate. So each thing that we eat comes with its own special parts of our microbiome, and we want to be supportive of that and make that work right. And certainly everything in Avini, all those toxic materials as industrial toxins, they're deadly to us, but they're going to kill them probably before us. So they're screwing up our mix in our microbiome. So we're benefiting. And, you know, we started with the liver, but I wanted to take you guys on a little bit. I just, for some reason, when Christine brought that this morning, I thought, okay, I'm going to take them on a ride through the digestive tract. And so that was it. There's probably some more things I could do there, but anyway, that's kind of what I had for you tonight.
I
Thank
think,
you, Chip. Thank you, Chip. Carol, go ahead.
I think, Jim, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I'm listening to you, Chip, okay? So I've known for a long time that sugar doesn't work very well in my body. And so I've been taking the fiber now for about 2 months, I guess. And if I start eating, you know, some sugar, then I'm waking up every hour.
Mm.
And since I've been taking the Avini, I get up and maybe 2 times a night now. I mean, it's like 3 or 4. I can sleep about 4 hours now without getting up. And it sounds like it's the balance in my body is working its way out. Is that what I'm understanding about what you're saying?
Well, it's one really powerful thing to get right, and you should be experiencing that in many ways. It's neat that it shows up in sleep. When people talk about sleep, I always ask them, if you're doing Avini, have you noticed that your dreams are more detailed and in more color? And if they are, that's more oxygen in your brain when you're sleeping.
Oh, wow.
And so that's another thing you might notice. And
Yeah,
oftentimes,
I have noticed a difference in my dreaming.
so if you can
associate.
predict something or bring something to their attention that they can say, yeah, that did happen, well, they start being suspicious. You might know something else. You see the little trick there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Jim saying, I wonder what else he knows about me. You know, but
Yeah.
it's about all of us. It's about all of us living things and what makes us more alive. That's the fascination. Thank
Yeah,
you
I
for
have to
speaking up.
I just had to go to the bathroom all the time at night, you know.
Mm.
Perfect. And we're hearing that plus hydration, if people's legs want to move or cramp at night, that's really important. And so, you know, sleep's super, super important too. So we could be called the sleep company, the gut company, the brain company, the skeleton company, you know, the overall health company, but we could be called a pretty good little business if you want it to be. And you know, I do want to recognize, I'm looking at the people here, and I think I've gotten to do 3-way calls with almost everybody on the call here, and so that's a testament to you guys. Thank you, and please feel comfortable using me in that way. That's what I do.
Thank you, Chip.
Anybody else?
Anyone have any other questions? We're running out of time. We're almost done for this evening. So this is your opportunity. If you have a question to ask Chip, please raise your hand. And
Oh, my
oh,
goodness.
yeah.
I
Quiet
feel
vote.
like I just got a biology lesson. It was amazing, totally amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Yep.
you. I like doing that, and oftentimes just a little bit of, you know, let's just talk about it. You know, tell me, and I will say, guess where you can go to learn that? Somebody who's got digestive trouble knows a lot, and if I'm on a 3-way with you and I'm doing all the talking, there's one of 2 things happening. Either I'm in a terrible hurry and I have to, you know, tell you like right away to go to the next thing, or I'm in trouble, because I love to have the person who I'm working with teach me. That's where this stuff comes from, is from the people. Who's super smart about having, you know, a fatty liver problem? Somebody that's had one. You know, who's smarter about liver problems? Chip Littlejohn or Ed Plasky? Ed's been there, done that. He can tell you, you know, in no uncertain terms, you know, I did it. You know, I can't say I did it on that topic like he can say it.
That phrase is going on the t-shirt, I think. We're missing one of our gals tonight. She's back, right? We had the lady with the brain talk about being back. So now we got, I did it. Love it. It's growing every week with somebody sharing a testimonial about what's going on in their bodies. And Jim, I'm not sure what we're going to say about you, but thank you, Jim, for sharing. You're sleeping better. And that's great, Jim, that you're not getting up as much, because that can disrupt the whole family as well.
Yeah.
No, not just yourself. Carol, go ahead.
Christine, so I just really want to take a second and welcome Lisa Will to our family. She just became a distributor and she has been, coming to this call for some time. And she just came on board as a distributor and an enthusiast, hopefully. And so welcome, Lisa.
Welcome, Lisa. And Lisa also is from New York originally. She counts towards the New York group, and,
Wait a minute.
and she's a horse person. So we've had some conversations. So we're going to do some stuff with some horses. Welcome, Lisa.
And I had to come aboard because I've had brain issues for several years, to the point where when I lost my job last year, I just decided to retire because I couldn't hold a job. And after taking Cell Defender for a couple of months, I'm back. I'm coming out of retirement. I'm going to go win the Super Bowl.
Bravo.
Perfect. Perfect. When somebody says something like Ed said, or like Jim said, or like Lisa just said, at that moment, I'll often say, meeting's over, sign up in the back. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
It doesn't.
It's been profound.
That's a rocky moment right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Amen.
Exactly, Alan.
I have to say something here. I stood for Lisa. I mailed her the free Cell Defender bottle. I kept being in communication. I stood for her.
You care about her.
I cared about her. I supported her. Share, Lisa, share.
Yeah.
And I will. And I actually had a doctor's appointment last week, and I shared this with my doctor, and she says, "Oh, we're already using that for several of our autism.
For autism.
We're already using it, and go for it." When your doctor tells you, yeah, that's, and my numbers changed significantly. There were certain numbers of infection that measured the amount of infection and mold still in my system. And it went from, should be about 1,200. At one point I was over 21,000. And now I'm down to 6,000, which is still way high, but better than I've been in years.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for speaking up, Lisa. Thank you for being interested in what we're doing.
Thank you.
This little core from this group, can grow the world. And it's really, really important to me that happens. And I'm here to help you do it if I can.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chip. You and your wife are really so wonderful to jump in and always be here with us. So thank you for your wisdom and your knowledge and your education. And thank you tonight for the journey you took us on. We're all going to think about things a lot differently, I'm sure, as we take that fork and pick it up to our mouth, the journey that we'll go on. So we're just about out of time, everyone. Listen, next Thursday night, Avini Vibes will be here, and we're going to have a guest next week. We're going to have Doug Dickey, our very own Doug Dickey, next Thursday night. So please feel free to invite as well. And who knows what journey he'll take us on. So thank you for being here tonight, everyone. Have a blessed night and just go out and share. Good night, all.
Everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.